Wow. So let's talk about the track, Fantastic Voyage. You know, when how deep were you into recording that record when you came upon that, and how did it sort of like develop?
Well, we had just got off one of the Budweiser tours. So, you know, when you'd been playing 30 or 40 shows and you down to the last show and it's now time to go home and rehearse, and you was like, you know, because you just on a roll, you know. So now it's time to record another album. And we got to work like we usually do, just start vibing together. And if we already had a song that we was thinking about or an idea, we would rehearse it and develop it. So what happened with Fantasy Voyage was actually like two different songs.
Hmm.
You know, like the beginning of Come Along and Ride on a Fan, that was one section. That We Just Want You to Be, that was another section, which was another song. So what happened, neither one of them really rocked by themselves. So we put them together and the magic started happening with that track. And once we put everything together, the rest of the stuff just came out of the air. You know, the verses, the hook, come along, and it just was perfect. But it took putting those two grooves together to make that song happen.
Were you guys influenced at all by like you know, Rapper's Delight or any of the rap that was coming out right then in terms of
We
that?
knew about them, but we wasn't really thinking about it. We just wanted to make what we called a choral rap, a rap in harmony. Like we had 4-part harmony with the rap because nobody else was doing it. We was always trying to do stuff nobody else was doing. So nobody else was doing that. So we was going to rap in harmony and use the two basses, like the regular bass guitar and the synthesizer bass. Because nobody was playing two basses in their songs but us. Even on Shot of Love out from Shot of Love album on, that was just our thing because that's what we had in the group. We had a synthesized bass player and a real bass player. And the synthesized bass player also played the percussions and the congas and all that. So we just utilized what was in the group and we made it work on our records that we made. So that one really stood out, the two basses, because you see what I'm saying? So you saw the change in the two. And that's how that song really came about. We didn't know that song was going to be a hit. We just knew that we loved what we had and what we had put together. And it was time to go in the studio and record it. And then once we got in the studio, you still tweak things, you know what I'm saying? But when we got in the studio, it pretty much went the way it was in rehearsal.
And of course, that song went to #1, baby.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I can remember Casey Kasem came on and Fantastic Voyage, I think it was at number 10 that week. And then the next week it went to number 7. And so I just thought it was going to move up a couple of more points because 10, it was 3 points up to 7. So I figured it may move 3 or 4 more points. It went from number 7 the very next week. It went from number 7 to number 1. Number 2 was
that's a huge leap.
It jumped from number 7 to number 1, and number 2 was Michael Jackson. Number 3 was Aretha Franklin, and we changed places with Stevie Wonder. He was number 2, and we changed. He went to number 7. We went to number 1, and Michael Jackson went to number 2.
So a bunch of nobodies.
All right. I mean, just to show you, I was amazed that we was in front of Aretha Franklin, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, and they were hot. I mean, their records was hot. But Fantastic Voyage, and you know, it's so funny too, because Fantastic Voyage never really had a lot of promotion behind it. It was more like the people's record. That record did most of what it did by itself, just from people knowing about the record. Because you didn't see it blurred everywhere. Fantastic Voyage. No, it didn't get that. Because the record company didn't know what we had. They didn't know the record was that big. So they did, as a matter of fact, the record was big before they even did the video. They had to catch up. It was funny. And they were scrambling around trying to catch up because they couldn't believe the record went to #1.
It must have been amazing to start performing that live at your shows once it became so big. I mean, people must have been losing their minds.
Oh, it's still right today. We just did Houston Friday. And when we got to Fantastic Voyage, people just lost their minds.
I got one point I wanted to make to viewers is that when you said Fantastic Voyage leaping from 7 to 1, that kind of thing hardly ever happened back then because that was before the sound scan. You know, they didn't like use that process. So when SoundScan came in, that would kind of happen a lot. But back then, things moved rather slowly up the chart.
Yeah,
so that was
they did. It was like one step at a time or 2 steps at a time. But when that record jumped from 7 to 1, I couldn't believe it. I was in shock.
Yeah,
and that's all they talked about on TV was Fantastic Voyage.